I was that kid out of the chute. I was the one that was gonna be asking the questions and being fascinated by people, and I was gonna fix the world until my father had a stroke when I was about 9. Well, there goes the family dynamics, and now I've decided, being the second in line out of 4 and the oldest boy, that, well, I'm gonna step into the shoes that I could never. Loving to get involved with people, but it's the study of, what's making this person work. Why are they
Mm.
doing that? And seeing through them when things are changing a bit, and how you can get in there and help. The first thing, it's a decision. I have to make a decision that says I'm worth it, because I have to get up and do this every day. The second thing is not to make it a chore. It should be
Mm.
something you like to do. They're going to cry, but they're going to laugh. And I'm not saying we're
Mm.
going to joke around all the time, but we're going to make this something that's attractive.
Many people this day and age are struggling with anxiety, depression, and anger. What are some steps they can take to start that journey?
We have to go to
No.
the body first.
Mm.
People will say, it's my brain or my body. And I'm trying to tell them that's all the same thing. The brain is an organ in your body.
Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Today, we're joined by Faust Ruggiero, a psychologist with over 40 years of experience in counseling and human behavior. Faust has worked in diverse settings, from substance abuse centers to prisons to corporate consulting, and he is a creator of the process Way of Life, a step-by-step program designed to help individuals lead happier, healthier lives. He is also the author of Fix Yourself Empowerment series, which includes award-winning books from anxiety, depression, anger, and addiction. In this episode, Faust will share insights from his work, practical steps for personal growth, and how we can break free from the cycles holding us back. Let's welcome Faust to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Welcome, Faust.
Anthony, thanks so much for asking me to come on. It's a pleasure to be spending time with you today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to have you on the show. And I'd like to start with really getting some context around your journey in life, from childhood to now. What are some of the steps that you've taken, or the highlights, and some of the challenges that you've faced? How have you overcome them?
You know, uh, I was that kid, right out of the chute. I was the one that was gonna be asking the questions and being fascinated by people, and I was gonna fix the world. All those kind of things that go along with people that think and feel the way I do. And so things are progressing along real nice until my father had a stroke when I was about 9. Well, there goes the family dynamics, and now I've decided, being the second in line out of 4 and the oldest boy, that, well, I'm gonna step into the shoes that I could never fill. So, but what it was a turning point, where I really was sharpening the axe, if you will, on helping people and making things better. So it was something that happened early, um, that I kind of plugged into, and it never really left. So here I am, you know, many, many years later, and I'm still doing the same thing and still loving it.
That would have been hard, losing your father at 9. Um,
Yeah, he had a stroke, and he was around for a while, but it was such a devastating stroke that
yeah.
he was a shell of what he was. There were 4 of us. My mother had to kind of, really close ranks and figure things out. So there I was, thinking I was going to fill the shoes. And I look back at it, and I probably did pretty well. I was, at the very least, I could be a sounding board for my mother. I could be there, and or she could say, I could see she was falling behind, or maybe on the laundry or whatever. Okay, you jump in and you do some things. But it just puts you into the mindset where you say, well, you know what, there's other things I have to be doing here.
Growing up, what were you into, and what did you think you would become as you got older? Like, what was on your mind at the time?
Was never a big thing. You go through all the things that kids go through. There's an actor, and I love directing. I love film. I do some work with it, but I think I kind of knew that. I was an athlete, so I loved sports. I still do
Mm,
today. Um, so I was pretty much your typical kid growing up in this part of the United States, and here you're either in this area, you are a New York fan or a Philadelphia fan, and I go toward Philly.
mm,
So we follow the teams, and I still do that today. So growing up, it was what we did in the 60s. There were sports, a little bit of TV. You go went out and played at the end of the day, and you didn't think much about what was going to happen. Then the latter years of high school come along, and you say, okay, college is coming. What do I want to study? And that wasn't even a choice. I knew what that was going to be. I knew it was psychology. That's just me.
wow, at such a young age, you were into psychology already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's loving to get involved with people, but it's the study of, what's making this person work? Why are they
Mm,
doing that? Seeing through them when things are changing a bit and how you can get in there and help. And I've always been a person that listened, so by the
mm,
time I was in high school, everyone, good friends were talking about what was happening at home and this difficult time, and I was listening. So the I was honing the skills already by the time I was 16, 17, somewhere in that area.
wow. So going into this profession was something that was like, you were doing it from a young age, so that was, yeah, it was like second nature to you.
It was,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
still is. It's just what we do. That's the way I look
what we
at it. It's
do.
just and I always tell people I love it so much that I get to be one of those people that never really worked a day in my life because I get up every
Mm,
day and plugged into something I absolutely love to do. And I'm still doing it after all these years. I still maintain a caseload, and I still see people, and I still can't wait to for the next one to come in and just sit down. I do most of my counseling in the office. I'll do some online, but most of it, you want to be able to sit with them, and if they need a hug at the end of the session, they get that or whatever they need. It's all that good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And like, are your clients from a particular, uh, like, type of people, or are you quite broad with
I've
with
been
the
pretty
psychology
eclectic
work?
about that. I designed it that way in college. I
Mm,
took different courses were very diversified. When I got out of graduate school, I worked in a number of different places. Deaf kids, prisons, clinics, substance abuse places. So I wanted to have a lot of reference points so I could treat different kinds of people. So it's been all different ages, individual, family, couples counseling, substance abuse, kids, whatever, you know, I don't really draw a line. I don't do really young kids, I don't spend a lot. That's more of a specialty area, but um, you know, my oldest
yeah.
has been probably close to 80, and the young ones are probably,
Wow.
early teens.
Mm, mm. And what is it like working with people within the abuse centers and prisons?
People always ask that. It's like working with anyone else, really. These are people,
Yeah,
the our idea of the prison are these difficult, bad people, and all they are, a lot of them are just good people that made mistakes,
they're
had
just human
difficult
beings.
circumstances, and once you sit down and talk with them, you're simply touching another human, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, agree with that. Well, let's dive into the process. What is the process way of life, and how does it help people make lasting changes?
When I counsel people, as I started counseling people, I noticed that there were certain ways to teach them that made sense. There are things that needed to change. Processes are nothing more than a way to get there. For example, a process might be honesty. It might be gratitude or humility. It might be slowing your life down, getting your intellect over your emotion, those types of things. And I teach people how to do those things so that they can apply those skills to anything that comes up in their life. A lot of times, therapists work, you come in and say, well, I've got this problem. So they help you with that problem. And then what happens is 2 years down the road, another problem comes in. So you go and you have them help you with that one. I want to teach them skills so that I always tell them you're in business with me, so I can be you'll be out of business with me. You
Mm,
should not need to come back if I'm doing my job, well, unless something traumatic happens in your life. But you should be able to be, the master of your own destiny. You should be able to deal with whatever comes up in your life, and that's what the processes do, make us stronger.
mm, absolutely. Yeah. And could you tell us a little bit about the process itself? Like, what are the components of the process? What do you normally take your clients through from a typical? Is there a pro? Yeah.
The starting spot, yeah. When they come in, the first thing I do is what we call a purge, if you will. Let's look at all the things you're doing or anything you're doing that is causing you a problem. For example, someone might come in and say, I'm really dealing with anxiety. I said, okay, let's look at your sleep schedule. Let's look at how much what you're putting in your body. A lot of caffeine, maybe. Are you the 2 or 3 cup of coffee drinker? Are you drinking energy drinks? Whatever it may be. We want to purge first. Then we're going to start by, slowing everything down. That's a hard thing for people to do, but I teach them how to slow it down. Whether it's, you can start with breathing and yoga and do all those kinds of things, but I want them to slow the pace of their life down. We go too fast. It's as simple as that. The world moves very quickly today.
Yeah.
I remember my grandparents telling us when we were born, you people go 100 miles an hour, and I look at that now, and we were in slow motion compared to what's happening today. So we've
Mm,
got to get people to slow down. Otherwise, your brain can't learn. It doesn't learn going fast. It learns when we slow down, uh, because we have to keep repeating processes for it to understand change. So we want to be able to slow down. I want them to be honest with themselves. I call it
yeah.
brutal honesty.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to come in and tell me half the story, well, we're going to get half a fix or no fix at all.
Mm,
So,
mm,
that's where I start things with right there. And then we start to move through all the different processes, ones that apply to them. You may come in and be a very humble person, so I don't really need to teach you a lot about humility. But you may be a person who is a people pleaser, and you're trying to please the world, and everyone's mad at you, and you're always feeling as though you're being victimized. So we want to look at whatever process works for you.
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with what you said before about we're moving too fast, um, and we're constantly on the go, 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 hustle, 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 and there's so much stress that we create. It's not that stress is coming to us, but it's that we're creating that stress by adding more pressure on ourselves. And how do you feel we can like? How do you help people slow down? Especially people who are going through a lot of stress in their lives and with financially, with maybe their jobs. How do you help them in that sense?
We're going to look at the whole schedule. We're going to first put them on a schedule. That's the first thing.
Mm, mm,
So many people get up whenever they get up, or they get up very early in the morning and then they go real fast and they go to sleep whenever they can. Accelerants in their body, sometimes it's substances, pot or alcohol to slow them down. We want to get back to a natural way for your body to work. The body works on a schedule. That's the
mm,
way it works best. So it understands, it plugs right into that. I help them formulate a good, efficient schedule where they can plug into it most of the time. There are going to be times when it just doesn't happen, but we want to start there. We want to start with that part of things. Then we start with a plan. And okay, what do we want to change here? Then we're going to put all the processes in place, and I'm going to teach them, and we're going to make very, very small changes, not real big ones, and program those in. And I teach them how to set goals and how to have a life plan that they establish and are able to perform with increments, just small increments, not big things. Everybody wants to, fix me in 10 easy steps, and there is no such thing.
no,
So I tell them, it's all about small changes. So your brain learns how to work with those. And then when you go to that change, we go to the next one. So I teach them how to do that step process.
Yeah. The brain does love repetition and familiarity, right?
Eh, Repetition over time is how the brain learns. In
Mm,
the new book I'm writing now, I actually have a chapter in there just on
mm.
that. So people understand that they're not just going. There are so many books out there. Fix yourself in 21 days. That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. And what'll happen is someone will do it, and they'll start to make the changes, and they'll think it's working, and they'll stop because
Yeah.
they got there in 21 days. The most important thing we have to understand is that our lives are dynamic and keep on going. And until we get to the finish line, our brain is learning and changing. And we want to be able to say, yeah, I'm worth the change. I'm worth focusing on myself. It's not about getting to some destination because you know what happens when we get there? It's not what we thought it was anyway. So I always say just one day at a time, plug into today, make today work. Your tomorrows will be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's back consistency because, like as you said before, 21 days is effectively when you're building a habit, but you've got to keep that habit going, and it's that small steps and compounding effect that's going to help you in the long run achieve
Exactly.
whatever you're looking at doing. Yeah. Let's dive into your book series now. So, what inspired you to create the Fix Yourself Empowerment series, and how did those books work together?
It's a good question. I'd been counseling for so long. The kids grew up. I said it's really time for me to start reapplying my time. I wanted to write. Excuse me. So I put the first book together, the Fix Yourself Handbook. That's where all the processes are. That worked real well because I just as I did a kind of a literature review on self-help, I realized that there's a lot of information built in long chapters that didn't seem to go anywhere. They gave a lot of information, but they didn't teach people what to do with the information. So I wanted to put action steps at the end of all my chapters. I wanted the chapters to be smaller, so I wrote 8 to 10 pages, sometime even a little less. And then at the end of each chapter, I say, here are the steps you need to take. There's your incremental learning. Wrote the first book, and then right around the time the pandemic hit, and we were coming through that, I was noticing such a spike in anxiety that I said, well, let's go into anxiety. Did that book, and it really helped a lot, for at least what I'm told, a lot of people through the pandemic. But we came through it, and then the bottom drops out, and we have depression. So I said, okay, now here comes, which is often happens, anxiety and depression go together. So the Fix Your Depression Handbook was the next one. Um, when I looked at what happened in this country, particularly after the pandemic and a couple of years after that, we saw a lot of anger. Now I'm seeing it worldwide. The increase in anger is staggering. The fourth book, that's what we did, the Fix Your Anger Handbook. And we did set, I think there's 15 different kinds of anger in there. So we
Wow.
started looking at, rapid anger or passive aggressive anger or retaliatory anger, all different types of things. So people could see what type of anger they were dealing with. And
Mm,
it hadn't been presented yet. So we did that, and after each chapter, here's what you can do with your type of anger. And at the end, I gave about 10 chapters of how to deal with anger, how to get your body and your mind working differently. That went over well, and then I went back into my addiction training, and we went into the Fix Your Addiction Handbook, which came out in December. And
mm,
that one is doing well. 17 kinds of addiction. Uh, and, because there's people think there are one or two, and there are not. There are many. So we went into that and say, and all the books have exactly the same design. The short
mm,
chapters. So if you read one and you go to the second book, you say, "Oh, it's all set up the same way. I can read. I
mm,
can plug in like I did before." So that was another part of the plan that we have been working with. So, Fix Your Addiction Handbook is now doing very well. Some of the colleges in this country now are beginning to use it. as
mm,
an ancillary text to their addiction programs.
mm. Well, I didn't know that there were different types of anger. I mean, yeah, I kind of did, but like the, you know, I didn't know that there was so many different types of anger. Or you're not conscious of it, right? You just say, I'm angry, but you don't really go, what kind of anger do I have?
For some people, it comes real fast. Some people, they let it simmer. Other people, you won't even know it's there because it's passive aggressive and they
Yeah.
hide it all. They get real sneaky about how the anger comes out. There's all
Mm,
different types. So once they, because what happens is someone says, well, you're angry. When you say, well, I'm not lashing out at anyone. I'm not fuming here. I'm not doing all these things. And then you negate what they say. They might say, well, no, you have retaliatory anger. When someone does something, you retaliate against them and you
mm,
go at them. And then they say, okay, that's a little more specific. I don't have all that other stuff, but I do
mm,
that. Yes.
mm.
So,
Peop
when you
Yeah.
break it down, people can see that and then plug that little piece into the way they're living their lives.
They can identify with what they're doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So many people this day and age are struggling with anxiety, depression, and anger. What are some simple steps that they can take today to, on the start of the journey? Because it is a journey, not a destination. So what are some steps they can take to start that journey towards? Yeah.
It's a great question that leads into one of the myths about mental health and depression and anxiety is that we need to go to the brain first. We
Mm,
don't. We have to go to the
no.
body first.
Mm. Body
And
keeps the score.
people will say it's my brain or my body, and I'm trying to tell them that's all the same thing. The brain is an organ in your body. We don't
Body.
separate the liver or the kidneys. We don't say, well, my kidneys and then my body. But we do
Yeah.
it with our brain because it's a thinking
Mm,
machine and we
mm,
assume that's different. But the body controls the way the brain will work. And if you're not buying that, think about when you're in pain and your body is really, tensing up. Try to think through something while that intense pain is there. You have a real difficult time.
yeah.
Likewise, the brain controls so many systems in the body. So that reciprocity is something that's very important. So I tell people we have to start with your body. Let's get you healthy. Healthy eating plan, anxiety, depression, anger, whatever it may be, getting a healthy eating plan is essential. What you put in your body is what fuels it to work. Sleep is so important. Cellular regeneration all occurs then. Everything we're doing that rejuvenates us is occurring during sleep, not while we're awake. We're using all the resources then. So if we don't sleep well, we have a problem. And if I can get people to start with those two pieces, then we can get into, all right, let's look at the circumstances in your life and are there abusive conditions? Are you anxious over things that are happening, finances, relationships, whatever? We can go to all those because they all want to go there first. And I say, that's fine, we'll pay attention, but we've got to get your body in order. If you're telling me, when I say to people, are you sleeping well? They say yes. I say, how many hours? They say, as long as I get 6, I'm okay. I said, that's not what I asked you. What should you get? The answer is really about 8. That's where we should be.
Mm,
And what people do is they report what their body has adjusted to. So, I go to bed at 10 o'clock because I have to get up at 4. Well, that's great, but that's not enough for your cells to regenerate. It's not enough. Are you getting that deep REM sleep? A lot of people aren't.
mm,
How many times are you waking up? Now, people are coming in with these little apps on their phones, and it said, "Boy, I was up 5 times yesterday overnight, twice to use the bathroom, and then I was tossing and turning. It said I was awake 10 minutes. I don't remember that. that's when you weren't in REM sleep. That REM sleep, that deep sleep is when that's when your body's giving your cells all the energy. Your
Mm,
neurology is being recharged at that point. So that takes time getting on a schedule. And I always say try 8 hours. If you can't get eight, at least seven, but don't settle. And one of the things I've said is when we were kids, even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was television. Okay, you watch TV maybe, but at least you were just sitting down and zoning out, so to speak. Now they are brain deep in their phones on all different kind of apps that are energizing the brain, and they're trying to go to bed right after that. In fact, most
mm.
people, many people, take them to bed with them, and that's how they go to sleep, by watching their phone. Well, that very few people do that and get good nights of sleep.
Yeah, that's just getting you out of your circadian rhythm, right? And it's and the blue light doesn't help you with falling asleep
It
because
doesn't. That's just the
no,
opposite.
yeah, because you want to go to that theta brainwave mode and
Right.
then into delta where you're going to get that
Correct.
rest. Yeah, exactly.
I have
Um,
a young girl I was working with, and she said every night she would wake up at 4 o'clock. Every night, she
mm,
said. I said, well, it's been this way all your life? No, it's in the last 4 or 5 years. So let's look at what you do. I said,
mm,
why are you waking up? When do you turn your cell phone off, or your iPad, or whatever it may be? Right before bed. I said, and when you get up at 4 o'clock, what do you do? Well, I can't fall asleep, so I get on my phone, and about 20 minutes later I can ease into sleep. I said, your brain is waking you up to go on your phone because you told it to do that. We
mm,
need to get away from those kinds of things. We need to
yeah.
get back to easing ourselves. I teach this, and I'm one of those people that can go, go, go. So I don't put the accelerants in my body. And when it comes time, it's time to go to bed. The hour before bed, I am done with electronics, and now I'm easing myself, and make a cup of a tea that calms you down before bed. If you want to take a CBD without THC in it, or something like, and then go to sleep, and then try to do it so you can get 7, 8 hours of sleep. Start.
Mm.
The rule of thumb with any of these mental health disorders is get the body healthy
Get the
first.
body healthy. Exactly. Yeah, I was listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza on a podcast, and he was talking about exactly what you said about people often think that your brain or your mind is separate from your body, but it's not, because we've effectively got three brains, and we've got our mind is all through our body, because all our cells have their own brain, you know. So yeah, it's interesting. People, you know, they're so stuck in their heads instead of actually understanding what's happening in their body as well.
And that's, it's interesting. Once you do that, almost every holistic treatment available starts with the body.
Mm,
But mental health has gone, eh, mental health, and that's the other thing we have to look at. We say, if I say, how's your mental health? Think about it. Where does your mind go? It doesn't go to the positive. You start examining what could be a problem. It
exactly.
says mental health, not mental unhealth,
Mm,
and mental health.
yeah,
So that's what we should be thinking about. So we're taught to go negative. Now we have quick fixes. The drug companies have just killed the world with this kind of stuff.
mm,
Anthony, when I started practicing in a private practice 37 years ago, 7% of my clients came in on medication. Now, 60, 70%. Now, and then
wow.
before they get to me, they're all buying into the quick fix. And here's
Mm,
the philosophy they're buying into: take the pill first, then go work on your problems. Well, I say, you're not going to work on them because the energy is going to be completely different. That's going to dull your problems. You're going to say, well, I'm feeling a lot better. You know, if I helped everyone 37 years ago and we didn't use meds, why are we using them now? That's
Mm.
what I talk about empowerment.
Yeah.
Medicine weakens you, it doesn't empower you.
No, no.
Very important point to remember.
Yeah, and that takes us back into the addiction side of it because people then get addicted to medicine as well, right? So, what are some of the misconceptions about addiction recovery that you'd like to debunk?
I think the first one is that you can do it yourself. You know, when people start working with addiction, first of all, the addict does not want to be identified as such, so they hide it. I'm going to do this myself.
Mm,
Family members are embarrassed. There's shame involved. They don't want everyone to know this is going on in our family. So it's an unspoken conspiracy, so to speak, where no one is getting out, is taking it out of the family. So, the first thing you do is get help. Call your family doctor, call a counselor, a 12-step person, whatever you want to do. Make the first call and get it out of the family because that's not where it belongs. If you could have dealt with it in the family, you would have. It wouldn't be the problem. So the first myth is that we can do it on our own.
no,
We cannot.
no, no. What is it that Einstein said? The same thought that created the problem cannot solve the problem, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So we need help from, like yourselves, psychologists, coaches, and so on, to help us through that journey. And just going on to the next question, which is around change. When we try and do change on us by ourselves, it depends. To me, like I've done a lot of change in my life, but a lot of people find change quite overwhelming, right? How can someone stay committed to their personal growth?
The first thing, it's a decision. I have to make a decision that says I'm worth it. That's the first
Mm,
thing. I,
mm,
because I have to get up and do this every day. The second thing is not to make it a chore. It should be
mm,
something you like to do. I'm saying if you and I are working together on this and I'm saying, and you're coming with a problem, I'm saying, Anthony, I want you to have a good time doing this. People that
mm,
counsel with me, they're going to cry, but they're going to laugh. And I'm not saying we're
mm,
going to joke around all the time, but we're going to make this something that's attractive. Be able to make improving your life and becoming powerful something that's attractive to you, that you want to get up and do every day. If you look at it
mm,
as, oh, I got to get up and do this, you're not. No one goes into something and gives it their best when they don't want to do it. It should be something that we embrace. This is
yeah,
me. This is my life. I want to get up every day. I'm a person of faith, so I always get up and I say, "Okay, Lord, let's go get them." And
mm,
I'm ready to go. If you can do something like that, it changes the way your world works. You have to be able to look at it as something that you want to do, not that you
yeah,
have to do. If
exactly.
the people that have to do it in their mind, they're going to go after the 21-day program. They're going to go after the pill because they don't want to do the work. They're
Mm,
defining it as work.
mm,
Shouldn't be defined as work. It's
mm,
just something that gets your attention every day and
yeah,
enjoy doing it.
yeah,
And if you need help to enjoy doing it, get some help. By all means, you're worth it.
absolutely. Totally agree with you. We've got to feel the worth that we are worthy of prioritizing ourselves and spending time, good amount of time working on ourselves, because when we change, everything changes. And I totally agree with what you said. So you've worked with a lot of individuals and corporations. Can business leaders apply these principles and create a healthier workplace?
I love the question. And when I go into
Mm.
businesses, you know what they'll often say? Let's get a program together that we can teach our staff and they're all going to get better. And I say, you want a program, right? And I said, who is going to deliver this program? Our staff. The people with personalities and emotions and all the problems that people suffer through? And they look at me. And I said, I didn't say your staff was a problem. I said, they're human. If you want to put a program into your business, start with the people who work there. Let them know that they are important to you. Build programs that help them become powerful and efficient. And so, like I just said, we enjoy working on ourselves. We want to enjoy coming to work. If you don't have that in place, I don't care what program you put in. They're not going to commit to it. But when
Yeah.
in companies where employees are, particularly you get into middle management and HR people, when they're saying this company really is really invested in its employees, those employees are more productive. They have less absenteeism. They don't quit, and they are dedicated. That I like this company. I know that if I go out, I won't find what this company does, and I love the way I'm being treated. I know if I go out and say I've got this problem, they're going to say, "Let's look at it with you." That doesn't mean you that's an excuse not to work, but it does mean that we care about you. You put that in place, now you can put any program you want to put in because see, they already bought into you. I always tell that to the presidents and the upper management, the executives. I say, does your company buy into you? Do they trust you? Do they think you have their backs? If you can answer yes to all that and tell me why, you're in a good place. If you can't do that and you're removed from them, that's an entirely different story. Why in the world would they commit to you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I say, here are the books. Here are all the processes. Start with yourselves. Start with your upper management. I have a lot of companies that are using particularly the first book and
Mm.
say, we're getting our people strong, and they're coming in and saying, okay, I identified things in myself, but also in the company, and the company is understanding their people just a little more. We're getting better results.
Yeah. 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 Wow. That's cool. Like I've worked in corporate for about 30 years, and I've seen some really good um, programs and helping people, and not so good. So yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. Where can our listeners find your books and find out more about your work and connect with you?
Best place to find me is my website. It's my name, faustruggiero.com. And
Hmm.
everything about myself, the program, the books, everything about me is there. And there's a contact link if people want to contact me, and I do get back to people.
Right, that's great. We'll put those links into the show notes so people can then connect with you. Now, we're at the point of the podcast episode now where I'm going to ask you 6 quick fire questions. So you can answer this in one word or a short sentence. And the first question is, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Success for me is just what we talk about. It's personal empowerment. That's what it's all about. People like I define everything from the inside out, Anthony. So, people like to say, well, I did that. I was successful. And I said, that's great, but I want to be successful in here. I want to be powerful inside.
What about fulfillment? How does that, how do you define fulfillment in life?
Fulfillment is when I embrace everything in my life so that I can think about it, I can feel it, and it feels full. It just what the word says. It fills my life up,
Mm,
and I'm embracing it and I'm living it every day. I love living like that.
yeah, I love what you said there. Yeah, absolutely. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
Oh, that's easy. That's my mother.
Mm,
She's a person who, in the face of adversity, didn't lose anything, didn't lose a step. I mean, it was difficult, and I'm sure she had her tears alone at the end of the day. But 4 kids, a husband who had such a devastating stroke. She was an intelligent person who was an executive secretary, worked at the Pentagon when she was young. I mean, had a lot going for it, and then went back to get herself a job that would support the family, came home and was plugged in every day. Taught me about what it was like to stay focused, stay in, don't quit. Absolutely.
Awesome. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
For me, it'd probably be my faith.
Mhm.
We live in a world where faith has become discardable or it's
Mm,
undefinable.
mm,
And for me, it's very, very definable. I have that defined with I call my Lord. I have that defined. I plug into that every day. And, and for some people, they'll vehemently disagree with that, and others
mm.
will, okay, well, whatever. Uh, it's it's a mainstay for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I agree. Faith and having faith is so important. Uh, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be don't be so serious. You know, uh, life is it's important, and it's important to plug in and be serious about your work, but don't take things so darn personally. I was
Yeah,
that person that just and relax, breathe, enjoy, get out there and just let the world happen a little bit more.
yeah. We just gotta let things flow into our
We
lives.
do.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one message you'd like to share with the world?
Easy focus from the inside out. We have a world,
Mm,
particularly with technology the way it is. We go out there and then we bring that in. We react emotionally, and then we believe we're connecting that way. And I'm sure the world should start here and work outward. And if I'm working on myself and I'm becoming powerful and I'm becoming a good human and I bring that to the rest of the world, that love is what I wrap around everything then.
yeah. Now, last question is, what does it mean for you to be a champion in your life and to have a champion mindset?
For me, it is again, it's my faith, and it is to be in service of people. Those are the reasons I believe I'm here. Um,
Mm,
so I champion my willingness to plug into other people, to help them, and to teach them the things that have been working for me.
mm. Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you, Foss, for sharing your expertise and your insights, and also the work and the process way of life, which is truly transformative. To our listeners, if you've been listening to this and you really want to take control of your mindset and your personal growth, check out Foss books and resources, and the link will be in the show notes. And thanks for tuning into the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I want to encourage you to keep growing and keep thriving. And lastly, I want to say you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.